Hey, so cannibalism and Christian theology. Wow, how do those two connect? I don't know if you've ever seen Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins, he played the role of Hannibal Lecter in that movie and the ones that came afterwards were Red Dragon and Hannibal. And then Mads Mikkelsen, the Danish actor, he played the role of Hannibal Lecter in the television series. Very different than how Anthony Hopkins did it, but both were sort of genius and very intelligent in their own way. But what does this have to do with Christian theology? So if these sorts of questions interest you, by the way, please like and subscribe, and we have lots of discussions about these sorts of things here. Hannibal Lecter. He was this cannibal that ate people. And what was really interesting, particularly more in the movies, I think, than in the television show, was the fact that he had this line: "I only eat rude people." And in the movies, you see him murdering and cannibalizing people, but he specifically targets people who kind of got it coming. That abusive husband, that corrupt politician, the kind of the bad guys. And so even though Hannibal Lecter is thoroughly evil, he's going out to get other bad people. And so you find yourself almost kind of rooting for him. I don't think that came across quite as clearly in the television series, though it was there to some degree in some ways. But here was what interested me, and this is why I wrote a book on it called The Cross and the Cannibal. I'm putting the link. You can get a free e-copy download in the link below here on YouTube if you'd like one. But of course, it's not that sort of subject's not to everyone's taste. But what does it have to do with Christian theology? Well, I guess it has to go on with understanding what cannibalism really is. And here's where the movies and the television show got it wrong. I don't say that so much as a criticism. Like I said, I'm a bit of a fan of both of them. They were just so intelligently done. But historically, cannibalism, it's not about people going around eating those who have been rude to them or those who have been mean. Historically, cannibalism, it's not about people eating their enemies. Whenever a society would adopt cannibalism, and historically, what's remarkable, if you ever do study cannibalism, is just how widespread this was practiced. It was practiced on every continent among so many people groups of, just so many different ethnicities, really until in many places, the 18th and 19th centuries. You and I, we have a lot more cannibal blood in us than we would like to admit. And that's kind of fascinating on one hand. But the other thing that's fascinating about it is why people were cannibals. Why did society begin practicing cannibalism? And this is it. It didn't begin by people wanting to get revenge on people who had hurt them, so they go and murder them and cannibalize them. No, cannibalism originally began in many societies as a religious impulse. And they would not eat people they hated. They would eat people they admired, people that they looked up to. The Druids, to get wisdom, would eat the brains of intelligent people that they admired and they wanted their wisdom. Someone might eat the heart or the muscle of a mighty warrior trying to take on his strength or his courage. And in its darkest form, when people would sacrifice and murder and cannibalize children, it was to kind of get their innocence and their purity to wash over them. And by eating them, somehow the innocence of the child would pass to them and remove their sense of guilt and shame. This is how it began in many societies throughout the world, as a religious impulse, eating people, hoping their life force would pass into them. Now, even though it often began as a religious impulse, it didn't always stay that way. If it was part of your religious worship, well, then whenever a famine came through and food was scarce, maybe you would eat for more profane and secular reasons. And it could disintegrate to, well, you ate my aunt, so I'm going to eat your cousin. It could get to that eventually, but that's not where it started. So this is why Jesus' words in John chapter 6 are fascinating, where he comes and talks about, you must eat my flesh and drink my blood. You see, the cannibal impulse is based on this feeling that our lives aren't enough, that we aren't sufficient. We're not wise enough, courageous enough. We're not significant enough. And we need someone else's life force to pass into us. Now, even though we generally don't practice cannibalism anymore, although there are some places where it happens, as far as I know, one statistic I looked up was that the country where it's still practiced the most is, any guesses? It's not in Asia. Well, it kind of is. It's not in Africa. Where is it? It's Russia. Russia is supposedly a place where cannibalism is the most practiced. You have to go look that up. I forget what website I found that out, but it had to do with you know um, killing and what to do with the bodies afterwards. But supposedly in some places in Russia it's still practiced. But even though generally it is not practiced anymore, at least legally not practiced, the impulse is still there. We still feel we're not enough, and we do other things to satisfy that cannibalist itch. How many people have seen relationships, often romantic relationships, but sometimes it's family relationships or friendships, where one person just seems to devour the other, where one person comes into the relationship and all they do is take. They don't devour the person literally, but figuratively, emotionally, psychologically, in so many ways. They eat the other person up. And it's because they're starving. They can call love, I love you, I love you, I love you. But what they really mean is, I love how you make me feel. I might destroy you. I might leave you worse off than when I found you. And it's a type of hatred. But it can be, you get these dysfunctional relationships that are 80% hatred, and yet we still call it love. You're not helping the other person at all. You're just devouring them because you're hoping their life force passes into you. So people practice cannibalism in, this. They feed that cannibalistic impulse, trying to find people or things to come and feed them in a way, and to make them more than they really are. So I'm glad we don't practice cannibalism in the way many of our ancestors did, but that impulse is still there. And this is why I think Jesus' words are so significant. Jesus knows that our lives aren't enough. It's not that cannibals are wrong in their impulse. The cannibals know they need a life force outside of them to pass into them. What they were just wrong about was where to go for the meal. And Jesus says, I present my flesh and my blood as for the life of the world. That it wasn't just a spiritual thing, but really his body being broken on the cross, his blood being shed on the cross, that the physicality of it, something, it feeds us. He calls to us to come, and that's why the central item of our worship is the bread and the wine that we take in communion, or the Lord's Supper, or Eucharist, or whatever your church denomination calls it. That it's a meal. Remember, sin entered the world because of a meal. Adam and Eve ate from the tree, but Jesus comes and offers another meal to compensate, to undo the effects of that first meal back in Eden. And in Genesis, we see that the world, all of human history, is going towards a great meal, when we're going to dine with our King in the new heavens and the new earth. This is cannibalism. It is a perversion of a human need that is very deep and that the gospel meets. If you're interested in this stuff, again, please like and subscribe, or I'll try to put the link to the free e-copy of this book if you want to read more of the details surrounding Christian theology and cannibalism. Hope you guys have a great day.